Picture this. You're stuck on a train heading back from your dead-end job. The only solace in your life is a story that you've been reading since high school maybe, and you love it to death. No matter how much you ask or prod, no one has ever wanted to read this story. You are alone, the reader of this story. The train stops and all hell breaks loose. Suddenly you're recognizing it. You're in the apocalypse, but not just any sort of apocalypse. The apocalypse detailed in the book of which you are the only reader. Metanarratives, what are they, and why do every video essayist want to talk about them so often? I can answer the first one, but the second one, that's up to you. You just gotta figure that one out on your own. A meta-narrative, as described by Manwha, is a conversation between the reader and the author. Every piece of the story has a greater purpose, and every story has another story that the author wants to tell. Whether it's a story of good versus evil, or a story about how the divine light of Christ affects those around them, i.e. peak fiction, or how cool it is to be surrounded by hot women. Every story has another story or message that the author wants to talk about and communicate to the reader, using the characters and places as set pieces to convey a certain message. As such, whenever a reader misses the point of a story or simply doesn't understand the greater message being told, we call them media illiterate. It's because the reader and author have fallen out of sync and aren't communicating properly. Storytelling is a very interesting medium in which to convey art. Unlike paintings or music, where often the artist's intentions are clearly talked about or discussed, storytelling often gets reduced down to the actions that take place in the story, oftentimes forgetting the author is a person who is trying to tell you something. Rarely, when you discuss storytelling, do you honestly talk about what an author was trying to do with a character, what they represent in the greater plot, or how you extrapolate a message from it. And that's a little unfortunate. So let's talk about it. Throughout this video, I'm going to outline 3 rules of how an author and a reader communicate and how it's used to effectively tell a story. And I'm going to be using it for the backdrop of another series of peak fiction, which is going to be the 3rd intro to this video. Count them, folks. 3 intros! We got 3 of them. Omniscient Reader, or Omniscient Readers Viewpoint, is a webtoon-manhwa written by the authors Sing and Song. A pen name for the 2 people who wrote it, who happen to be happily married. Look at them, they're so cute. The original manhwa was adapted to a webtoon by Umi, this fella. Now, for context for this video, I am not going to be basing this off of the manhwa, mainly because I'm reading the webtoon version of it. The reason for that is I have no idea how to get a legal copy of the manhwa, and this series is so peak that I don't feel like pirating it, so I'm trying to get it through legal means as best as I can. The story follows an introverted loner by the name of Dokja Kim. He's an alpha male lone... Okay, no, he's a fucking dork and he reads web novels and visual novels for his life. He finds himself accidentally intertwining himself with the plot of the main series reads called 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, meaning he has the ability to interact with characters that he already knew about, interact with systems in the world that he can understand the risks and advantages of, and can even prep for future events. He's essentially a god in this little world, which is pretty relatable. I mean, have you ever read a story and put yourself in the place of the main character saying, oh, I could have done this better. Oh, I could have fixed this issue. Oh, I'm not stupid like this character, and I definitely could have fixed it. This brings me to my very first rule of storytelling that I talked about in the 2nd intro to this video. The author and reader must both put forth effort to understand and create the story. I think one of the most disingenuous arguments someone can make about a story's quality is when they say something along the lines of, oh, this person made a mistake and that started the whole plot. Isn't that just one big convenience? The reason I believe this is disingenuous is mostly because, yeah, oftentimes a story has to take place because something went wrong or there's something to fix, and if that's because of a mistake of the main character, then yeah, of course the character's mistake started the whole plot. As a reader, you have to trust that this was the author's intention, that their moral failings or mistakes were an intentional part of the story that was leading to build something greater. Likewise, as an author, you have to trust that your reader is actually going to put forth the effort to understand your work. If, as an author, you believe that the readers aren't putting in their full effort, you're not going to write with your full amount of effort, leading to stories which are surface level and not as deep as originally intended. This is how you get highly commercialized works where their main motive is profit rather than good storytelling, when you believe that the viewer isn't actually caring about the story, but just watching it because of spectacle. Modern Marvel. One of the best examples of this is Hey, this is going to be spoilers content for Omniscient Reader. You probably guessed that since I'm going to be talking about it a lot, but there are spoilers. Read it now! The main character of Three Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, Jung Hyuk. Is it Hyuk? 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 We're going to call him Jung for now. Was going to start another apocalypse early, unleashing a catastrophe upon the land because in a previous life, him and that catastrophe were companions. Dokja reflects on this and remembers how much of an idiot he thought Jung was in this time. I mean, how could someone be so dumb to start an apocalypse early just because they used to know someone? To which this is later reflected on. Dokja remembers this is basically only the start of Jung's story, and that this was a mistake that fundamentally shaped the rest of the way he acts. Suddenly, it all began clicking. Sometimes people do dumb things because they're dumb and have a chance to grow. He once again began to have respect for the author's intent for a somewhat idiotic choice. The second major rule of storytelling that I'll be talking about is the reader is the jury and the author is the lawyer. The author must present a case for why you should enjoy their story, why you should examine it deeper. They must create characters that are believable, and if they want you to feel something, they have to prove that you should feel something. As a reader, following rule number 1, you must believe that the author is putting full intent into these characters, meaning as they are presented is exactly how they should be presented. It's up to you to give a thorough examination of someone's work on whether or not you believe it's believable or whether or not you care about it. Oftentimes, authors will add in a lot of fluff to make you believe something, either adding highly intense music to make you believe something epic's happening, adding a stinger to make you more afraid, or playing highly romantic music to get these two to believe that they love each other. And that's a disingenuous argument from the lawyer that is the author. They're presenting something that isn't true, but trying to build a bunch of circumstantial evidence to make you believe something that's not. As the jury, or the reader, it's our responsibility to really examine how characters interact and how a plot unfolds to see how believable it is and how much we care about it. My favorite example of this is really close to the beginning of the book. The very first character that Dokja interacts with from the book is named Namwoon Kim. Dokja hated this character, did not like him, and with good intent. He was a malicious serial killer who kind of stuck around the main character. Throughout the book, he was supposed to be an avid companion of the main character, someone who would help and do everything he could, but Dokja took matters into his own hands and fucking killed him. While Namwoon was well written in the book, Dokja just didn't care for him, and as such, removed him from the plot entirely, which was incredibly hilarious, because later he goes to hell and Namwoon's there and he's like, "Oh hey, long time no see, how's it going, pal?" It's entertaining, but most importantly, it tells a little bit of a story about how if you can't correctly sell a character, then the readers might just ignore them, or worse. And finally, rule number 3, pain is a constant. Okay, this requires a little bit of setup. There's a character in the book named Se-young who is a massive girl fail, and I love her, and she's awesome, and I want to just give her a big ol' hug. She's an author. More specifically, she wrote a story that was incredibly similar to TWSA, Three Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, the book Dokja was reading. Yeah, you get it. You were paying attention to the video. I trust you. It was so close, in fact, that everyone thought she plagiarized it, but it turns out she was having visions of the future, probably, or she was lying. We're not incredibly sure. Either way, everyone recognizes her as a plagiarist, saying that she was creatively bankrupt as she cannot create an original story. There is a moment when these two get to have a conversation about catharsis in a story, about how long you're supposed to hold readers' attention before giving them the ending they want.
What's with that look? Are you sad that he's dead? You just let him ramble on just now. Why the hell would you do that? Constellations don't like frustrating situations like that. You have to get straight to the action, you know?
There's no way she'd be worried about me. I don't think you know what you're talking about. You can earn more coins if you let them have their say before you kill them. There's no catharsis without a little frustration.
You're wrong. The readers, Constellations prefer to have you kill them right away. You're not even an author. What do you know?
Se-young lost the inspiration to become a writer. Being constantly compared to other pieces of work, she lost faith and belief that there are any original stories or anything interesting to say. As such, she took the position that, yeah, Readers don't care about setup or plot or this sort of long dragging out of events. They just care about getting the action and the ending, and that's all they care about, selling off works that were highly commercialized. Dokja takes the opposite stance, that what readers really want is a long, drawn-out process where you truly examine things and let them feel pain so that eventually they can feel catharsis, they can feel something. An ending after a long, drawn-out process is more satisfying than something that is immediately delivered to them. One of the biggest surprises I typically get whenever I talk about Blazblue and how much I love Ragna specifically is me ending it with the sentence, "But I think he should stay dead." Imagine the plot of Blazblue, but instead of Ragna dying at the end, sacrificing himself for his family and everyone he loves, it gets randomly solved by a random NPC who was introduced halfway through, and then everything was resolved and everyone's happy and there was no pain and everyone lived happy lives, haha. I don't think Ragna would be as influential to me if that was the case. Oftentimes it's easy to look at a tragic character and say something along the lines of, "Oh, I wish they didn't suffer so much. Oh, they deserve so much of a better life. Oh, if only they weren't as bullied by the plot." But this is the third rule of storytelling. After the first, and you believe that the author is trying to make a convincing point, and second, when they're finally sold on a character, you now have to be on board to watch your favorite character just get beat up by the world. You have to trust that the author is going somewhere with this. You have to believe that their suffering is going to be worth it, that there is going to be an ending that is satisfying in some way. Whether that is a bittersweet ending or whether or not it's a happy ending, you have to trust that their suffering means something. Dokja in the story became very powerful. Exploiting game systems and mechanics and future knowledge, he was able to gain a lot of power, and it was eventually brought up to him that his companions weren't as strong as they should be at this point in the story. They were weaker, they didn't have as many as abilities, they weren't as emotionally grown as they were previously. Dokja reflects on this and then suddenly remembers, yeah, he's been taking on all the struggle himself. He's been cheating the system and not giving them their emotional worth by letting them experience the pain and struggle. He realized that he was taking away what made these characters so great by solving all their problems for them. The relationship between an author and a reader is 100% predicated on trust. As a reader, you have to trust that the author is going somewhere, that they're giving it their all, and trying to convince you of the reality of the story. And likewise, you have to, as an author, trust that your reader's willing to give a fair assessment of your story, and that they're with you to the end. If at any point you two break that trust with each other, the story begins to fail, and the story either gets misinterpreted and slandered, or becomes a product simply made to sell, I guess. As we watch a story, there's a certain enjoyment we get out of watching a character suffer, but it's mostly predicated on the love of that character and knowing that they'll overcome said struggle. There is no catharsis without a bit of struggle. Hey, thank you all for watching. I've been Renhart. Yeah, this was a video I wanted to make, and it's really weird. I haven't really been posting videos that I've been incredibly passionate about for like months now, and it's really weird to sort of suddenly want to make things again. When I was writing the script, I just kept writing and kept thinking of new things that I wanted to add, and I like it. I like doing that. It's fun. I hope you all enjoy. I hope you all, enjoy whatever it is that I have been cooking up, and hopefully, you've gained a little bit of a deeper understanding about authors and readers. If this helped you as an author, great. If this maybe expanded your horizons a little bit as someone who read things, great. Either way, I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you all. It's been a real pleasure. Bye-bye!